Hello, I'm Natasha and this is Noir Histoire. In this episode, we'll be hearing from Adekunle Oduye, a design technologist from my hometown, Brooklyn, New York. As a kid, Adekunle had a strong passion for art and enjoyed creating abstract and landscape paintings. Needing a change of scenery in college, he studied abroad for a semester and used the opportunity to travel throughout Europe. In this interview, we'll discuss some aspects of web design, as well as the importance of providing mentorship for young Black professionals who are entering the tech industry. Adekunle, to start with, can you give me a brief overview of your personal background? Where are you from? What were your interests as a kid? And, what kind of student were you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I'm first generation Nigerian American. So my parents are from Nigeria and they came to New York or just the US in the 1960s. What I did, so basically I grew up, I was the last of seven. So um, I was allowed a lot of flexibility about like what I wanted to do. So I was basically an art major throughout my life, which was pretty good. And as a student, I was kind of, since I was like the last of seven, I was kind of rebellious a little bit. So I kind of wanted to kind of create my own path and whatnot. So that's why it kind of led me to being a artist because most people in my family were either like doctors, lawyers, and whatnot. So I didn't really like rules and kind of like the idea of like going to school just to kind of get a job and whatnot. So I kind of followed my passion throughout my childhood, which kind of led me to my career right now.
Okay. And what were some of your interests as a kid? Like you mentioned that you were into art and whatnot, but specifics of that.
Yeah, so I was into art, drawing, specifically painting. Um, I was in love with kind of creating abstract paintings, but also landscapes. I was into uh, I was into sports too. So I kind of enjoy playing basketball, but just kind of being active. Um, and I was also into just kind of exploring because I was always, a curious kid. So I was always interested kind of exploring different parts of New York and whatnot.
Okay. And so you mentioned not really liking rules and things like that, but what kind of a student were you?
I mean, I was one of those students that was I wasn't I was kind of always asking questions, like I always asked why. So I could have I remember not being or pissing off my teachers a lot because I always asked why and they got tired of that. So I was always able like always wanted to question everything because I felt like a lot of times people just did stuff just because someone told them to do it. So I wouldn't say I was like but I also got my work done when I had to be. But the idea where I was like I was always wanting to like get my work done so I can kind of draw and whatnot. So
Okay. And then did you have your first job during high school or did that come later? Like did you work part-time or anything like that while you were in school?
yeah, actually, I think my first part-time job was I think it was at it was at a clothing store. It was called Jeans Plus, and I was kind of um, selling sneakers, which was pretty cool.
Okay.
Um, and then I think that same year I was also like a camp counselor. So those are probably like my first two jobs where I was like kind of a camp counselor, but I was doing more on lines of uh, handling most of the arts and crafts. So basically the kids would come in and I kind of help them with their arts and craft projects and whatnot. So
Okay. And how was your college experience? What school did you attend?
it was good. I attended the University at Buffalo. Um,
Okay.
and it was pretty good because where like I was able to kind of really figure out what I wanted to do. So I came in as being a painter, like being a major focus on painting, but I kind of wanted to do art, but also do some sort of other major that's focused on either business and whatnot. So that's where I kind of did economics too. So I was like a double. I did both. I did a degree where I did a studio art, but also economics, which is pretty good because I think there's not that many people that kind of come out of school with those two degrees. But I just did stuff that really perked my interest. So that's why I kind of did those two things.
Okay. And then you mentioned being from Brooklyn originally and then going to school in Buffalo. How was the transition, both going from high school and whatnot into college, but then also the change in environment?
Yeah, so from high school and college, it wasn't too bad. I think the hardest change, like the hardest thing I had to deal with is kind of like going to a smaller town than New York, and being in a place where it's kind of hard to get around with a car and whatnot. So that was really hard. I was definitely had some times when I struggled with it. Hence why, like, I think halfway through my college career, I kind of studied. I studied abroad because I needed a change. So I went to Rome for a semester, but it was a challenge. It was something that I wasn't used to, and I knew that from that experience that I'm definitely a big city kid. So, um, but yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned that you studied in Rome for a semester. Did you have an opportunity to travel while you were there and see some of the country?
Yeah, so I travel throughout Italy, but also went to other countries like Switzerland, Germany, Great Britain, uh, Spain, and a bunch of other places. So it was pretty good because it's especially with Europe, like all the countries are like close together, but you literally go from one section to another. They're like speaking a different language and different kinds of foods and whatnot. So that's why, uh, yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience.
Cool. Did you have an opportunity to pick up any Italian or not so much?
I picked up enough that I was able to kind of get by. So kind of like ask for directions or tell people my name or tell them what I wanted. Um, but most of the stuff went away because uh, is not really spoke outside of Italy.
Okay.
Whereas like with Spanish, it was different. Spanish, you can kind of speak in many different countries and whatnot. But I picked enough, like it was enough to kind of get by. And I think that was a good thing because it kind of forced me to kind of step out of my comfort zone, basically.
Cool. So, what was your first job out of college?
Oh, my first job out of college was I was like working in a catering company in New York. So I was kind of doing that full time, part time, and then in some cases I had some sort of internship, which it would last like from anywhere from 3 months to 6 months and whatnot. But my first real job out of school was definitely that catering.
Cool. And then, how did you progress, I guess, into your career from that job into your early career?
Yeah, so it first started out. So my first like real design technology job was at a small agency in New York. So I applied first like for a job that I was definitely not qualified for, and they were like, no. But if you're, and then they were saying like, well, if we have a job opening for internship, they'll hit me up. So and then a couple months later down the line, they were like, hey, like we got this thing opening. Are you interested? And that's where it came. Like I started as an intern. So, and I wasn't earning that much when I was an intern. Like I still had to work my catering job, um, with also doing the internship. So literally, it was like the daytime would just be at my internship, and then after 6, I would just kind of take the subway to like my other job. So that was kind of like the rough part. But I think the good thing about it was that it kept me very focused on like I got good at time management because obviously I couldn't stay late, whatever like that. So I had to kind of making sure that I was able to kind of do my job in a fast and efficient way, but also have enough time for me to go from my first job to my next job.
Okay. And so you spoke about, having to balance those two positions at the same time and need to manage your time wisely. And this is actually taking place uh, not that long after you left college. Um, Including that, and then also outside of it, how was your transition from college to being in the working world? Did you feel prepared for your career? Did you feel like maybe you were lacking in some areas, things that you wish you'd known?
Yeah, I was definitely not as prepared that I thought. I thought college was basically going to teach me everything, but um, even when I was in school, there there wasn't really any like web design development course. Um, Also, like even when I was doing design, we had like months to kind of create a project or weeks. Whereas in the real world, it doesn't work like that. Usually, it's like, all right, you have this thing. We need something by Wednesday if today is Monday. So you have to kind of work much more efficiently, but also faster. So there was a couple of stuff that, or a lot of stuff that made the transition hard. But for me, I was just kind of adapting to it and just kind of making sure that I was able to kind of do my work, but also do some sort of research to figure out like how do people do it within the industry and basically taking what I've learned and applying it to work.
Okay. And you mentioned that while you were in school, there weren't a lot of courses to really teach you like the technical skills that you needed in your career. How did you end up learning those skills? Was it did you take classes or did you learn on the job?
It was a in between learning on the job, but also doing a lot of tutorials online
Okay.
because there are some cases where something needed to be done, say in a couple of days. So I was kind of learning, but also I would go home and just kind of really focus and making sure that I understood how to get that job done. Which I think was good because it kind of that pressure, but also that focus on like, hey, I got to get this thing done. I have to basically figure out how to get it done, and then I'll just get it done. So that kind of allowed me to kind of um, really focus on the things that I need to learn, and basically, yeah.
Okay. And then tell me about how you got from your early career to where you currently are. What are you currently doing, and what was the path that it took for you to get there?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it was definitely not a straight path, but I think for me it was perfect because I was kind of have this passion for both design and development. So even when I left my job, my first job, I went to do a couple of contract roles with agencies. And the reason why I did it because I really wanted to kind of get better as a front end person, and I didn't have uh, a lot of people mentoring um, at my first job. So I kind of like took those roles in a chance because it was both freelance, but also I knew I was going to work at places where I was going to get some good guidance. Um, and then I kind of land another role in front end development, which is pretty good, but it was also good because I was able to kind of do both design and front end. And I kind of realized I was like, well, I want to do more of like product stuff, or like be able to kind of see uh, an idea or a project from concept to completion. So that's where I kind of landed into NASDAQ, and I was there for a couple of years and whatnot. And then kind of leads to like where I'm at today, where I'm basically my role is like a design technologist. So I basically work on both the design side of things, but also the front end engineering side of things, which I think is pretty good because I think that's where uh, kind of excites me. And a lot of stuff that I do is around design systems and front end prototyping.
Okay, so can you explain like what's front end development versus design, just like a basic overview for people that might not know.
Yeah, so uh, every time I reference to design, it's talking about going from understanding the users, but also creating solutions for that. So if you think about design, UX design, traditional way, it's kind of where you do research, you get a good understanding of the user, you understand their problems, their pain points, and their goals, and then basically creating wireframes and mock-ups to kind of create uh, basically solutions for them. Whereas front end is basically similar to what we have, where it's like kind of like the design aspect of it, but it's more on lines of actual building the actual UI using code. So the code language is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So for me, I was able to kind of take the idea from design, where it's like more of like a concept, and you kind of brainstorming ideas and figure out what solution is best to completion, whereas more or less like actual building out the actual UI for the actual application.
Okay. And you mentioned that you spent a few years at NASDAQ, but then that you'd also worked on projects as both a freelancer and also some consulting. Do you have a preference for one versus the other, or meaning for being an employee versus a consultant or freelancer, or does it depend on the project and the circumstances that you're working under?
I think it depends. For me, I think in the past I like working on in-house product teams because you get to learn a lot. Especially when I was at NASDAQ, I was kind of able to kind of get a good understanding of like user research, but also how to sell design and whatnot. And I think that's a good thing. But I think in the future, I'll probably be doing a lot more consultant, because I feel like right now it'll allow me to have more flexibility, but also work on a wide range of projects and with different clients from big to small. But yeah, it always depends.
Okay. And so, if you can bring us into the present and some of the more recent type projects you've been working on, uh, like now being a design technologist, and I know you're also doing some speaking and things like that.
Yeah, so for my full-time job, I'm a design technologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is a cancer hospital in New York. My major project or the reason why I'm there is to kind of build out the design system over there. So design system is kind of thinking about it like reusable UI components. So I'm basically crafting the UI components that the engineers are going to use for production. And then other than that, I do freelance projects when I have time, but also do a lot of public speaking around the area of like designing code and whatnot. And then the other thing I do is like I do a lot of mentorship. So there's a couple of organizations that I'm a mentor for, but I think for me it kind of allows me to kind of pass the knowledge down to the next generation of designers and developers.
Okay, cool. And then looking back over your career and like where you are now, how would you define success? Or I guess taking into account your own career and the people you've worked with and things like that, how would you define success?
I think success matters on if you feel fulfilled, but also if you feel like you're providing some sort of impact to people. And I kind of think it in both sense, like where it's like inward and outward, because like outward you're providing you're doing something where people are using it and it's kind of helping them accomplish a task or a goal, but also internally you want to be fulfilled because you want to make sure whatever you're doing you're passionate about, because that's the only way you can kind of get better. And I think that's how I measure success. And I think overall I feel like I've been very successful to myself, because I kind of at a point where I know what I want to do and I know how I want to do it. And the only thing I basically have to do is figure out like how can I make my passion, whereas it's helping people, and I think that's what I'm doing currently right now.
Okay. And standing where you are now in your career, if you had the ability to go back and talk to yourself when you were either still in college or shortly after you graduated from college, what career advice would you offer to your younger self, um, either while still in school or shortly after graduating?
Yeah, I think the if I was still in school, if I had the ability to kind of tell myself, I would have probably done more internships throughout school, and also be more consistent with it. Because I think there was a couple of times where I applied for like 2, 3 internships, then I didn't hear back, and then I was like, oh, that's whatever. But I also started late. I always apply for internships in the summertime, but I know that a lot of the internships are filled up prior to the summertime. So I felt like if I would had done more internships while in school, I'd probably be further along in my career. But yeah, that would probably be the advice I would give myself.
And look into the future, what goals or plans are you currently pursuing or planning to pursue in the near future?
Yeah, so I think the first goal what I'm trying to do is definitely create some sort of mentorship program where I'm basically mentoring people that are interested in the intersection of design development, which I'm calling the whole like design technology realm, because I feel like a lot of times if you see the boot camps or other things, what's happening is whereas like people have to select between, design and front end. But I think in today's world, those lines are starting to be blurry, and I feel like there needs to be more people that are kind of giving some advice on kind of being able to do both, because it's not easy task, because obviously what's happening where it's like you have to switch a lot of hats, but I feel like it's fulfilling because if you have the discipline and the passion to kind of do both, you're going to be very valuable to any team and company. And I think right now what I'm trying to focus on is basically provide some sort of guidance for people that feel like they can do both. So that's one. And another thing where I'm really focusing on is uh, doing more teaching around design and front end development. So I don't know if it's going to be a school right now, but I feel like I think the reason why I want to do it because I realized that there's not that many Black educators in the industry itself, and I think even for me, like that would have stopped me from getting into the industry, but I was definitely lucky to be in a family where we were doctors and lawyers. So I was kind of thinking that if they could do that, then I could definitely be in this industry. And I feel like there's a lack of representation for Black people within the tech world. So that's why I think having some sort of impact where I can kind of teach, especially uh, people either in high school or in college, and basically be able to kind of get some career advice and whatnot. And then third, I think I kind of want to create some sort of application around personal finance. I feel like that's another thing that's lacking within um, people from black and brown communities, is where having like some sort of good knowledge around financial education, because it's not really taught in schools. And I think again, like for people to kind of be able to kind of progress not only within their career but also in life, there has to be some sort of good knowledge around finance, just kind of like how to create a budget, what's the difference between a Roth and a regular traditional 401k and all that stuff. And I think uh, basically giving the tools and empowering people to basically better their lives, and that's where I'm trying to focus on in the future.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Um, So our last regular question. Imagine it's years from now and you're nearing or already retired. When you look back on your career, what accomplishments or achievements would make you consider it a roaring success versus, just mediocre or disappointing?
Yeah,
What
I imagine.
milestones would you have
Also,
wanted to, I guess, reached or accomplished in your life, in your professional life, that is?
uh, so there's a couple. I think the first thing is definitely starting my own business and uh doing stuff that's around my passion, which is like kind of like education, but also finance. And I think that's a big thing. The second thing is that just providing and just giving back to the community. That's what I'm big on. Is definitely making sure that I either provide uh, provide opportunities or empower those from Black communities to be able to get into the tech industry. Because right now, like the numbers are not that high. I think the only people, the amount of people that work in the tech industry that are Black are, I think, is around like 6% or something like that. And I feel like it's the job of me and others making sure that we open those doors for individuals that come from the communities like we come from to give them the opportunity and give them guidance and give them support to get in the industry. And that's a big thing for me because I feel uh, like I said, there's always this question about like diversity and people always like talk about it. But I think for me, I'm more about like providing some sort of solutions or kind of solving the problem itself. So I'm always about like empowering each other and making sure um, whatever we do, it's for the culture itself. So
Okay, great. And bonus question. Either at present or in the past, have there been any books in particular that have inspired you or motivated you in your career or I guess guided the choices you've made in your career?
uh yeah, I think the autobiography of Malcolm X was definitely a big thing for me. Because if you think about his story, where he was basically a common criminal, but then he kind of transformed his life into becoming one of the leaders within the civil rights movement, where he was kind of debating people in college campuses and whatnot, was kind of inspiring for me. So that's definitely one. Trying to think if there's something else. I probably say that's probably the biggest impact for me. And also another one I would say would be The Secret. So The Secret was where the power of thought. So like um, whatever you think has an influence about what your life is going to be like in the future. So if you think you can do something, then it's going to happen. If you think you can't do something, that's going to happen. So that was kind of powerful for me because like it was kind of the point where, you know, if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, what's going to happen is like you're going to get a negative outcome. So I'm always aware of like what I'm thinking and making sure that if I'm kind of thinking negatively, to like making sure I have some time to kind of think why I'm thinking negatively, but also figure out like how can I change the negative into a positive and basically. Um, so yeah, I think those are like kind of the two books that I would definitely recommend for others and whatnot.
Okay. And you mentioned your siblings and your family being an influence on you, but I guess from within them or other people in general, have there been any specific people that have either offered you guidance or mentorship or just been like inspirational for you with regards to your career or just life in general?
Yeah, there's been a ton of them. And some of them are like friends that kind of helped me in the past. So there's Cat Small is one of them, Asia Ho, Amelie Lamont, there's so many. And the thing about like why I look into a lot of these people because they have helped me in the past where I've asked questions. whole reason why I got into speaking was some of my friends were like, "Yo, you need to kind of go out and speak," and I was like, "All right, cool." But it's always good to kind of have someone that understands the experience you're coming from. And a couple of them are like more lines of like career wise. So like one of my former coworkers, Asia, Amy Silvers, she's definitely one of the people that helped me out with speaking, but also with user research and whatnot. Uh, Man, there's a lot. There's a lot.
I mean, those are good examples. That's enough. If you can't think
Yeah,
of
I
any
could
more.
I could go on days. Gina and Claudina, Asia Green. There's like so many of them. I should definitely make a page on my website for like all the people that have inspired me and gave me some motivation. But that's a few.
Key takeaways. College and trade schools can provide the structure and fundamentals for a young person's career, but it's vitally important to have opportunities to learn on the job through internships, apprenticeships, and entry-level positions. You also have to take the initiative to learn new skills in your own time. It's important for Black professionals to mentor and provide guidance for the people coming up behind them. This is especially true in industries where Black people are underrepresented. Outro. Thanks for listening and watching. I hope you got something out of the interview and join me again next week. Until then, take care. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you return to watch future episodes. For more information about Noir Histoire, visit the Noir Histoire website. There you'll find text, video, and audio for each episode all in one place. Subscribe to the Noir Histoire newsletter to get fresh content delivered straight to your email inbox. You can also subscribe to the Noir Histoire YouTube channel for videos. If you're enjoying the content but would prefer to listen to audio, you can subscribe to the Noir Histoire podcast via iTunes, Apple Music, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. If you subscribe, please also take a few minutes to rate and review the show in iTunes. Follow Noir Histoire on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Enjoy the rest of your day.